This is a part of the K3 module, learning about the business, knowing the business. And speaking of business, a lot of people have been asking me, should I incorporate, should I start a company for my business? And that's never an easy question to answer, because I've always found that every time I've asked an accountant or a financial manager that type of a question, they all say the same thing. It depends. It depends on you, the individual. So I have to say the same thing. It depends. But I'd say as a rule of thumb, you don't need to start a company, I would say almost ever, unless you're making a ton of money. Because it's pretty easy for you to just run a sole proprietorship or, a DBA, doing business as, or whatever. Because you can usually deduct expenses relating to acting. You really shouldn't have too many expenses anyway, because I know when I was starting out, you have all these acting classes as expenses, etc., but there's never any income to deduct the expenses from. Now, usually you can only deduct expenses relating to the business that the expenses are generated for. So if you happen to be working at Starbucks and you're taking acting classes, again, talk to your accountant about this, but generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, you can't use your acting expenses against your unrelated employment income, because it's a separate business, okay? That's your acting business. But let's just say you're making $20,000 a year acting. If you want to start a company and incorporate, you're going to have at least anywhere from $1,000 to a couple of $1,000s in company-related expenses just to keep that company going. Okay, there's always fees and taxes that governments charge for the privilege of setting yourself up as a business. So for the benefits of maybe the extra deductions, unless you're making a lot of money, it's probably not worth doing. Err on the side of caution in terms of wait till you're making some pretty good money, because it'll just simplify your life a lot more by not setting up a corporate structure. That really can complicate your finances a lot. And if you get behind on them, you could get yourself in some trouble with the government because there's a lot of paperwork. You have to keep proper books, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas if you're an independent sort of entrepreneur, sole proprietorship, you don't need books. You just need to keep track of your expenses and your income. And normally your employers keep track of your income for you. So you don't even have to do that. So you don't have to, operate QuickBooks or anything like that. Whereas if you're a business, then you have to have a set of books. Okay? And you're supposed to do them every month and every quarter and so on and so forth. So as a rule of thumb, I would not create any kind of business structure until you're making a good chunk of money. How much that is, that's sort of up to you, but I would say probably $50,000 is, a rule of thumb. Maybe you would have saved a few dollars if you'd have gone corporate at $50,000 versus staying sole proprietor. But you also have to think of your time and your sanity. And, you don't want to spend a lot of time doing your books. You want to spend it trying to get acting jobs. So the few dollars you're going to save maybe doing the corporation, at that $50,000 threshold versus proprietorship is probably not worth it. So you want to make, I would say, at least $50,000 before you think of becoming a corporation. Okay, guys. So that's my take on it. Obviously, that's not an extremely informed opinion, but it's kind of it's an intuitive thing. Okay. That there's a lot more complications. You're not going to change. Your income isn't changing. All it's changing is maybe what you can deduct. So think about that. Because you can already deduct lots of stuff if you just set it up as a proprietorship. And there's no real liability issue when you're a private actor versus a corporation. I mean, acting doesn't generally involve great risks. At least you're not going to cause harm to others. They may cause harm to you, like the producers, but that's why they have production insurance. So that's mainly one of the reasons why people incorporate, is to avoid liability, because it's only limited to the assets of the company, the corporation. Whereas when you're a proprietor, your assets are the company's assets. So if you have a lot of money and you kill somebody slips and falls on your sidewalk, on your lawn, then you're responsible. Whereas if you're a corporation, you're not. But that isn't what happens as an actor. Actors generally are hired by other people, and generally they might be the ones slipping and falling. They're not going to be causing other people to slip and fall. And even if they did, the production insurance would cover that.